if you focus on the absolute opposite, right? So let's say the opposite of hate is love. Think about something that you love, right? And just really hyper focus on what you love. It could be anything. It could be a hobby. It could be a woman. It could be a dog. I don't know, whatever, right? Like whatever you love, focus on that. The absolute opposite of the spectrum. Focus on that and just focus on it. Just really think about it, and it'll slowly start transmuting your anger into love and your hate into love or whatever it is. Pretty fascinating concept. You can't really experience two different emotions at once. So when you're focusing on a different emotion, it helps you transmute the bad emotion into a good emotion. It's not good to bottle up this stuff though. Okay. If you are feeling a lot of hate, anger, and rage, you don't really want to bottle it up, and you don't want to resist it either. Okay. So transmuting it is not resisting it. All right. It's just recognizing that you're in this state and you need to focus on something else. Right. And you can do this differently. You could just do this with your thoughts. You can do it with journaling. You can do it with any kind of creative action, movement, talking it out with your boys, getting into a group like the Wolf Pack or whatever would be good for something like that. Okay. But I would invite you not to just stay in that negative headspace. I would invite that. By the way, guys, if you're getting any value out of any of these episodes, do consider sending a super chat. That helps support the show probably more than anything else. Going back to the Tao Te Ching, there's a concept of stillness. And one of the things that Lao Tzu said is, do you have the patience to wait till your mud settles and the water is clear? Like, what does that mean? Well, it basically means that in times of chaos, the wisest move is often no move at all. Right? Just take a minute. Silence and stillness can be acts of power. And you can practice this. You can practice this in your relationships, right? Let's say your girl, she's up in her feelings and she says something really negative that hurts your feelings, right? And your gut instinct is to blast back and tear her head off and yell at her and call her names or whatever. If you just take a moment, we call this the 3-second rule, right? Just take 3 seconds, just take a moment and be still with it. You'll find that you can respond rationally instead of reacting emotionally in the moment. That stillness gives you a minute to process things, to let things flow to and through you, right? And let it go. And you'll find that doing that and not climbing on her emotional roller coaster will earn some respect, and which is really paramount in a relationship, because a woman can't love a man that she doesn't respect. And most of us have no emotional control. And so when we lose our that causes her respect to wane. And as that respect erodes, her love for you erodes, and then your relationship dies. This is why frame is so important in a relationship, especially for men. You can think of emotion as energy and narrative. A concept from psychology paradigm is emotions arise when event hits a belief. And your beliefs, not the event, cause the emotional storm. And like I said before, if you think about it, most events by themselves are neutral in and of themselves. And it's our meaning that we put behind it that causes our emotions to come out. And that meaning comes from your paradigm, right? What's a paradigm? I sort of mentioned it already. I already said my book's called Psychology Paradigm. Well, the best way I heard described this, and I usually like to draw a stick figure. I'm just not prepared to do that. So I want you to imagine this for a minute. In the book, I do have a drawing of it. It's a really shitty drawing. I'm not an artist or anything, right? But what's a paradigm? Well, when you're born, okay, you are basically just a walking subconscious mind. You are just absorbing things like a sponge, okay? And so you could I want you to think of a stick figure, right? With a circle head and just a stick body. But that circle head is only a half circle. just the lower half for a minute. This is you as a baby going up to, I don't know, 4, 3 or 4, just a half circle. And that's your subconscious mind. And you're just walking around, just absorbing things. This is why small children can learn languages so fast, right? Because they're just absorbing their environment and they don't have they're not really consciously thinking and processing things. They're acting on instinct and just absorbing their surroundings. And at a certain age, you develop this psychic barrier. We call it, I like to call it the ego protection layer. And then you develop the conscious mind. And the conscious mind is miraculous, right? It takes input from your 5 senses, touch, taste, smell, vision, hearing, takes in all those things, processes that. And then based on, you're able to learn things and you're able to create your own conscious thoughts now. But what do we typically do? We only think thoughts consciously that are in harmony with our paradigm, our preconceived programs. Those preconceived programs that's your paradigm. Okay. And a lot of that was programmed in from when you were little. Now your paradigms do continue to grow as you get older. You keep learning new things, and especially things that have an emotional backing will cause a new paradigm to be formed, right? Something with strong emotional backing, a lot of repetition causes these new programs. This is why affirmations work so well. It's because that repetition, and when you back that repetition with an emotion, it really seeps in and creates a new paradigm. Well, after a while, anything that comes out, it doesn't matter if it's a different point of view. If it's not in harmony with your paradigm, that ego protection layer will reject it, right? This is why when you're arguing with somebody in the comments, it really does no good, because the other person already has a paradigm about what they believe, and you arguing with them in the comments rarely, if ever, changes their paradigm, because what you're saying isn't in harmony with their paradigm, so they reject it. So you're just wasting your time. You're absolutely wasting your time, Very rarely will your arguments online change anybody's point of view, change their voting habits. It won't do anything. It's a monumental waste of time. So when something like this happens, it's good to step back as a third-party observer. We have this ability in our mind to look at things from a different point of view, We call this in NLP dissociation. And it's a miraculous part of our mind where we can step back and look at ourselves and our thoughts. We can see our thoughts, almost like God looking at our own thoughts, right? And you can ask yourself, what am I telling myself here? Like, why do I believe this? And you can do this with anything. And if this thing is making you angry, why? Why is this making me so angry right now? You can rewrite that. We call this reframing in NLP, right? You can look at it from a different point of view, give it a new meaning, right? That's why this whole episode, it was like, yeah, Charlie's death to me, I think it was an absolute tragedy, But other people have a different point of view. I don't necessarily agree with that. But I was like, why can't I just do an episode that's not necessarily political and make it about why do we feel the way we feel? It's a total different point of view on the whole situation that most people I don't think are even thinking about. Speaking of arguing in the comments, follow me on social media, would you? I'm on all the good platforms. Marcus Aurelius from Meditations, he talked about building a fortress within, right? And he says, dig within, there lies the wellspring of good. And the lesson from that is, instead of burning the world down, build your internal temple. That's the only war really worth winning. A lot of guys in this space, MGTOW guys, men going their own way. MGTOW also exists on a spectrum, much like good and bad and left versus right. MGTOW exists on a spectrum, and there's guys like on one side of the spectrum, they haven't given up on women completely. They just don't want to get married, right? They just like, okay, marriage is a bad deal for men. I don't think that's a good idea. If that's you, I mean, I would say I'm on that part of the spectrum. And then I could call myself MGTOW. like the label MGTOW, but I would be considered MGTOW then, right? And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have guys that are more black pill, like nihilists, right? Where they're just like, I hate all women, right? Well, the guys that are down over here closer to the black pill side, most of them have given up on women completely. And the cope that they tell themselves is, I just want my peace. I just want my peace, bro. I'm embracing peace. I don't want to deal with women because women only cause chaos, and I want my peace. And to that, I often say is peace comes from up here. Peace comes from in here. It doesn't come from women. In fact, women will rarely bring you peace. They will only bring drama. Okay. But them in your life or them out of your life is not what's going to give you peace. Peace starts up here with your mental frame. And what you'll find is that a lot of these guys, they're not having any peace, right? They're online complaining about women. They might have a political, ideology that makes them hate the other side. And so they're not having any peace at all, really. They just aren't getting laid anymore. You know what I mean? You see what I'm saying? But peace comes from up in here, or up here and in here. Okay. Now, going back to the Kybalion, there's another law of the universe, the principle of correspondence. And what that says is, as above, so below, as within, so without. And what's fascinating about this concept is when you work on what's up here and what's in here, that internal state will mirror your external actions. This is why I often say that our results in life come from our actions, right? Your thoughts create your actions. Your actions cause reactions, and those reactions cause your results in life. And if you don't like the results you're getting in life, you got to change what's up here first, right? Change what's up here, because that'll change your actions. Those actions will cause different reactions, and those different reactions will cause different results. So if you can change what's going on up here, you will start acting differently, and then other people will respond differently. So if you lead with peace, others may follow. They may. Can't guarantee it, but they may. But this is sort of the beginning of social alchemy, if you want to think of it, right? And what I like to say, because a lot of guys in the red pill space will be like, we got to hold all women accountable. And a lot of these guys think that we're going to change women at this grand scale, And it's like, well, if you just change yourself and you worry about your personal relationships, right? Then perhaps other people will see that and go, man, I kind of like what they got going on. Maybe I'll try to do that. Right. Or what I think is more realistic is you have a good relationship. Your kids see what a good relationship looks like. They carry those paradigms about how a relationship should be into their relationships, and they have good relationships, and then their kids see it, and so on and so forth. And so eventually we can possibly make this world a better place by just starting with ourselves and acting locally, right? Think globally, act locally. So if we do that with our own interactions with people, you're working at a micro level that could eventually, if it spreads, impact the macro, right? But don't make that your end goal. Just worry about you acting now in the present moment with the people around you. And we could possibly make the world a better place.
New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Subscribe now.